You ever notice how the forest central run feels different? Most of the valley is stone, steel, and oil. But once you pass the old trestle bridge, the wild starts pushing back. The trees grow so close to the tracks they scrape the paint off the long hoods, and the air smells less like diesel and more like wet fur and old growth. The old-timers call this stretch the cathedral, but not because it's holy. It's because you feel like something is watching you from the rafters. I was hauling a load of raw timber back toward the mill. Heavy logs, still bleeding sap. It was one of those afternoons where the fog is so thick you can't see your own couplers. I was notched down, coasting, when the woods went silent. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. Even the rattle of the log bunks seemed to get muffled, like the forest was throwing a thick wool blanket over the whole train. I looked at my coffee cup on the dash. The surface wasn't rippling from the engine. It was dead still, like the world was holding its breath. I saw a movement in the tree line near kilometer 18, right where the track curves around the deep ravine. At first, I thought it was a falling cedar, but trees don't move against the wind. I flipped on my high-beam ditch lights, and for a split second, the beams cut through the gray soup and hit it. 7, maybe 8 feet tall, covered in hair the color of stagnant swamp water. A matted, mossy brown that looked like it had been part of the earth for a century. It wasn't a bear. Bears don't stand that still. Bears don't have shoulders that wide. It was just standing there, feet buried in the ferns, watching the train pass. Its eyes didn't reflect the light like a deer's. They were deep, sunken pits that seemed to soak up the beam. But then, as my locomotive drew level with it, it did something that made my heart stop. It didn't run. It stepped toward the tracks. I heard a heavy thud, not a mechanical sound, but the sound of meat and bone hitting steel. The whole locomotive lurched to the left. I looked in my side mirror and saw a massive, hairy arm reach up and grab the handrail of the second car. The wood of a nearby pine cracked as the creature used it for leverage, swinging its massive bulk closer to the moving train. It wasn't attacking, it was inspecting us. I froze. I didn't honk the horn. I didn't reach for the brake. I knew instinctively that a loud noise would be an insult, a challenge. For 3 agonizing miles, I felt the train dragging. My ammeter spiked as if I were pulling an extra 10 cars. Every now and then, I'd hear a low, rhythmic thumping on the side of the container behind me, like someone was testing the strength of the steel with their fist. Then, the weight suddenly lifted. I heard a sound over the clatter of the wheels. A howl. No, it was a whistle. A long, low, haunting whistle that mimicked the exact pitch and cadence of a steam locomotive's chime. But there hasn't been a steamer on this branch in 40 years. It was a perfect, chilling imitation. When I finally crawled into the sawmill yard, I climbed down with my flashlight. There, on the rusted steel of the third car, was a handprint. It was twice the size of mine, pressed into the grime, made of crushed pine needles and a dark, pungent musk that smelled like a wet dog that's been rolling in peat. The yardmaster saw me looking at it. He didn't ask questions. He just grabbed a high-pressure hose and started washing it off. He didn't even look at me when he whispered, "That's the brush breaker, son." He thinks the trains are just louder, faster animals moving through his territory. Just be glad you were hauling wood today. The last guy who hauled meat through here, he arrived at the harbor with his refrigerated doors torn off their hinges.